How's everybody doing? So I have been on a bit of a flat car load binge lately, trying to, not dream up, but, just studying prototype photos, especially in my area. Like, you ever get that where you see a local and you see some unique flat car load? Like, how many times do we actually even try to model them? I don't know if we do it very often. I mean, I've done a few in the past, like lumber loads, crate loads, just like heavy equipment loads. But I thought I would try an I-beam steel load because I saw an I-beam steel load when I was out rail fanning my local SRY a little while back. And they were just sitting there like right by the sidewalk where you walk. No fence, no nothing. They're just right there sitting. I guess they were a layover or something waiting to be picked up. I don't even know why they were there, to be honest with you, but they were just on a siding and there were these two loads there. And I thought, there's a load that would be really cool to model, that would be unique. And then I looked at how some of them were different sizes. So I thought, okay, this is probably a custom order, right? Custom order for some client or manufacturer. So what I decided to do is I would build this load and cover. I guess I covered a fair bit of it. And I want to share it with you. It's not that difficult to do, really. You'll need a few packages of evergreen I-beams of different sizes of your choice. You just have to decide, what size you want to do. I think I'll show it, some of the sizes that I did. But I basically want to just show you the strapping here and the wood dunnage, and actually show you how I painted the steel too a little bit to get this really cool, almost sort of weathered, raw steel look. And I'm really quite pleased with this flat car load. And I can't say that about all the things that I do, but you know how that is sometimes where you just are in a zone with a particular model. Just forget about everything else and just be bent on finishing, the load for that particular car. And I weathered the car up just a little bit too. But so yeah, so let's have a look at that, and I'll just let you see what it looks like. And then maybe you'll feel inspired, to build some kind of a unique flat car load that nobody else has, okay? So I want to show you or explain to you how I did this load. I'll be doing other stuff down the road, but I would just leaped ahead with this. People have talked about me taking a break. Well, I never stopped modeling. I never have. So how I take a break with the channel is I just leave the camera turned off and do stuff. So that's what I did with this. But I don't want to let it all just go by. I want to explain to you how I achieved this look, these really awesome looking I-beams, okay? And I'm going to zoom in and just show you the texture on here and explain to you exactly how I did it. But before I do that, all these pieces are just whatever size you want in evergreen plastic. Like, see this here? Like, some people aren't aware of this, but evergreen scale model says every profile and thickness of material that if you want to model, if you want to do wood, steel, concrete, it's all doable. And I show it on my channel. If you roll back under videos, under the home page, I have like 500 videos, right? And I cover a lot of this. Everything on River Road is scratch built pretty much from plastic. I know there's old school, thought that says, oh, plastic is not meant for modeling. Well, look at this. Really? How long has evergreen been around for? What do you mean it's not for modeling? I mean, the whole River Road is built pretty much out of this. Every structure is. I built from wood. Wood is good too. I'm not a big resin fan, like the old school resin, even though I used it in many occasions. And now I know they push 3D printing, but you hardly ever see, like in articles and magazines, I read editorials, and they don't even mention plastic, like evergreen plastic. I don't understand that. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. I want to show you these steel beams and how cool they look. You can't really see totally here, but, well, you sort of can, right? But let me just zoom in for a second. Okay, so I'll zoom back out in a bit, but just after I show you this. So you can see like this is just white plastic, or it was, right? Like see the rust on the end. That I did with the airbrush. I used the airbrush on some of this, but actually this was all rattle canned. I just used a flat black Tamiya rattle can. This is dark green, I think, but I actually used flat black. I put these on a piece of wood with a piece of reversed masking tape and just painted them all flat black. And then what I did was I just took super thin washes of dark gray blue after this was dry. Just painted it on really thin 50-50 water with this. And basically just did both sides. Now this sort of oxidization is interesting how that happened. You can do that with another layer of gray paint. But before I did that, after this gray dried over the flat black, what I did is I took one of my favorite weathering colors, burnt umber, right? It's a great rust color. These are the newer bottles, by the way. Just want to point this out. You can see they've changed the bottles. Like they say air, model air, which really denotes that, oh, okay, it's for airbrush, but I don't shoot this through my airbrush, but I just like it because the variation of colors, when you need small amounts, it's easy to just grab a little bottle instead of mixing the color. And you can vary 3 or 4 different shades that are subtle, and that's how you get this realism, is through the same color range, but subtle shifts in the same color range, right? Okay. So I take like these, like after it's flat black and then a blue-gray wash, I take a brush, a big bristle brush, dip it in this, and I just flick it with my finger on a wet surface. I can spritz it down. It's got to be wet. I explain wet on wet. If you learn wet on wet, you'll be able to do any kind of paint or texture like this. And the more you practice it, you won't believe how easy it seems to do once you get the hang of it, okay? The same with all this dunnage. Was like 3 or 4 coats of just tan, like aged white, sand and tan, but really thin, right, for the dunnage. Okay, so let me just zoom back a bit, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with this to build these up, and I'll explain to you how I got that white oxidization, okay? Okay, so I mentioned, flat black from the rattle can. There's no airbrush used for this. I think did I mention that? Not on these though. It was all done with a rattle can and then just by a traditional brush with really thin, diluted washes, okay, of just the color, meaning I just add lots of water to it so it's thin, so when it goes on it just looks wet, but when it dries with Vallejo paint, I mentioned before, it leaves this kind of effect. A lot of people don't realize that the trick to, these Vallejo colors, like acrylic, is putting them on thin, like diluted in multiple layers and letting them like dry each layer before you put on another one. Like don't keep putting wet layers over top of wet layers. It'll just turn to mud. You won't get this distinction like this unless you let each layer dry. And you're doing this between other projects, right? Do all the black, throw it aside, do something else, come back, oh, they're dry, put on another wash, throw them aside. Do that 5 or 6 times with subtle color changes and you'll get all kinds of crazy effects. I've talked about paint alchemy, right? Like I think I did a couple of episodes on that back. I was talking about anomalies, things that occur when you're in your pilgrimage, your modeling pilgrimage, like mistakes and anomalies that occur that you didn't plan, and how you can remember to use them to get effects that other people aren't able to achieve, or they find out eventually if you do it long enough. See how they're a bit darker on this side and then it's oxidized here. I'll show you how I did that. So this matte varnish in a rattle can I've talked about before, and what I discovered with this is it doesn't like isopropyl alcohol like finished paint. So if there's any isopropyl alcohol in any of the washes in this particular acrylic, and there probably is with the Tamiya rattle can, there's a type of ethanol in it. This acrylic matte varnish tends to speckle just like this, and I knew that ahead of time. I have sprayed this over other finishes like enamel or other coats and it's fine, but I don't use this normally. Matte varnish, I use the Tamiya acrylic because it's almost guaranteed with the type of paint that I use, like Tamiya, all the time. I don't get any of this with Tamiya matte, but from this I do, and I pretty much know it's going to happen. So what I did was I took all these I-beams outside and they looked pretty much like this, right? This, like before I sprayed with this Vallejo matte acrylic. So I only did one side, so when I sprayed them all down and it dried, this is how they turned out, and it just blew me away. I thought, that's it. That's the steel I-beam look I wanted, right? See that? Isn't that cool? And there's no gunmetal or steel labeled color. It's just flat black, that blue gray. I'll show you one more time. Whoops, dark gray blue, number 71.054. And if you want, you can use other blue grays by Vallejo. Like look through the rack and get all the gray variations that have blue in them. And then lay on, and then just get used to using them and you'll achieve results like this, whether it's wood, concrete, or steel, okay? Okay, so I thought I would show you some of this prep work of putting the actual load together. And the reason why is so I want this load to be able to come on and off the car, but I also want to keep everything straight. So like last night when I laid these up on a piece of wax paper, or actually parchment paper, you can see how I glued 3 together like that. That's how they stack them, right? And I laid them on a piece of parchment paper, 4 wide like that, stacks of 3 with, I just put a bead of matte medium, like just diluted matte medium, not straight from the bottle. So you don't need much. Like you can just practically dip your brush into matte medium and then just put a bead of water and run the matte or the brush along and put the I-beam on, and then I put weights on top to keep them all flat. So these are the first 4 stacks, okay? And you can see how, they're perfectly straight. So the matte medium's acrylic, so, and this is already painted, so it's a marriage made in heaven, right? So what I'm going to do is I basically took this piece of plywood and I just marked like 6 inches. This is from here to here is 6 inches, 3 inches, and then it's 1.5 in between. So there'd be 5 pieces of dunnage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them on here. And I've just reversed this tape upside down and then used a couple pieces on the end to hold it down, okay? I do this a lot for holding small parts because it simply works. And I just want to make sure that, excuse me, that they line up good. And then what I'm going to do is once I get these down on here, just quickly lay them on. Since I'm on the topic of tape, I just want to show you what I'm using for the strapping, because remember I mentioned, I painted this 1mm tape for strapping, right? So I can basically peel off and it just becomes strapping, right? Which works pretty good. You can paint the tape any color you want. What I decided to do was I'm going to do them out of black. So I just take this Tamiya, it's 1mm, and it makes for great strapping in HO and larger scales, just depending on the width of the strapping, right? So I think what I'll probably do is I'll use these for some truck trailer lumber loads or whatever, and then this I think I'm going to use for the steel, because it would have been that metal strapping, you just cut it and it gets discarded. I don't think they would use, I forget the name of those fabric tie downs that they use. But anyway, that which would be kind of a yellow, kind of tan colored. So it'd be good for, like truck and trailer stuff. So I'm going to lay those on there like that. And then what I'm going to do is, so I have the 4 main stacks here. And I'm going to use matte medium again, and I'm going to, make sure I can get 4 in there. I've already tested that. And I'm going to glue down these first 4 stacks like this. And then once that's done, I'll do 1 more stack. Like on the photo, I think there's 4, but I think these I-beams are a little bit larger in dimension. And I don't want it to dominate the actual bulkhead flat car. So, and then I'll figure out how to do these. I'll probably offset them a little bit. Probably do 5. Yeah, I guess 5 will work. And then I have these little bit, the next dimension down I-beams. You just check, I think just to refresh, like they're evergreen I-beams, right? You just go on the rack and take your model or your ruler, your HO scale ruler. I usually take one of these because I know the increments that I'm after usually. And then just decide what size of I-beams you want to use. And then these will go, maybe I'll just do 3. I'll save some of these for another load or something. But I'll just so that it tapers up almost pyramid style. That'll kind of look good, I think, like that. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do is just quickly touch on the strapping now. The strapping that you see here, it's on these steel beams. There's 1, 2, 3 stacks, and you can see how they're strapped. The bottom stack, and then it actually has strapping from the second stack down sort of into the first stack. You can see that they must have slipped it through, that metal banding. So remember how I did the lighter color earlier, and I decided, well, I'm going to go with the black, right? So just quickly on how I make the strapping is done with 1mm Tamiya tape. Yeah, that's right. You ever wonder why you see this tape in hobby shops? Okay, and what am I going to use that for, right? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to use it for. You're going to use it for strapping for models, for scale models. That's what you're going to use it for. That's one particular purpose, right? Okay, so I take this 1mm tape, a piece of scrap evergreen plastic, and if you lay the tape, the Tamiya tape, the beauty of it is, when you lay it down on plastic and you peel it off, it doesn't lose its stickiness. I mean, if you did it 100 times, it would, but when you do it like a few times, like the adhesive on this tape is so good, it still like stays like, sticky, right? See, look at it hanging off my thumb. See that how good it is? All right. So what I took just a brush with some of this Vallejo 71.057 straight black. Remember how I told you how I rarely use black? In this case, it's so minimal and it makes an actual nice contrast against the steel works, okay? That is where I use it in its most minimal form, okay? Then once I painted that black a couple of times with just, this is flat, right? It'll come out flat, just with a regular brush, straight, like just dumped it right on and just spread it out with a brush. I didn't put it on a palette or anything. And then once it was dried, I coated it a couple of times with this Vallejo gloss varnish. This is nice to have. I recommend these as well in your paint kit. Gloss varnish, there's satin varnish and flat, and it's really good for doing small jobs, right, with a brush. And this is 70.510, okay, and it's on the Vallejo racks as well. It's good to have those around. Once again, you just drop your brush in a little jar of water and walk away whenever you want. You don't have to worry about stinky solvent or brushes going bad on you. And if you do leave a brush with this in it, soak it in 90% isopropyl alcohol, your brush, overnight, and it'll restore the brush back to new. So this is my strapping now, right? So I'm going to show you how I put it on here, okay? So I'm going to take one of these like this, and I'm just going to peel it off, okay? I'm going to gently pull it off, lay that aside. Let's just move this out of the way, and let's move this photo out of the way because I'm going to show you how I put this on the stack. See the strapping there? It's neat, eh? It's sort of shiny. It's that strapping is probably throwaway. You snip it with the cutters, I guess. So I'm going to take this. It's still quite sticky. And I'm going to take my bundle like this. Okay, see how I've done these two already? See, I put one there and one there. So I make pieces at, 6 or 8 inches long because I want to wrap it a couple times around, and I'll show you. So I'm going to lay them between this dunnage. So I'm going to lay on the bottom first where you won't see it. I'm going to lay it over 3 I-beams like that or so. Okay. I'm going to hold it with my finger, and I'm going to stretch it fairly tight. And I'm just going to hold it tight. Probably doesn't matter on the bottom here, but doing it on camera is a little bit more awkward. And I'm going to pull it tight like that. And then run it over top. Do 2 passes. And then just cut it off or pull it. And there you can see that? Doesn't that look good? Like, see the gloss, just a little bit of a hint on the strapping there. Isn't that nice? When the light hits it there. Okay. And then once I get that done, then what I'll do is I'll probably put on one more stack, but you can see what they sort of look like here on the flat car. Okay, and then I have one more set of 4 stacks of 3 that I'm going to glue on with matte medium. I'm just going to apply matte medium the same way I applied it on the bottom of these dunnage and just laid them on, and then I just put a weight over them off the car. That's why I have these little pieces of plywood around. So I lay that on with some matte medium. I just put a bottle or a jar on top for a few hours, and it's nice and secure. And the matte medium, you won't even see the glue, right? That's the beauty of matte medium. You don't see it. There's no trace of it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. To me, a 1mm tape with some flat black and a little bit of gloss varnish or satin if you'd like, if you find it too offensive, the shininess there. And you got yourself some metal strapping for your I-beam loads, okay?